In just a moment, you'll have the opportunity to hear from some incredible community leaders, as Dr. Jones mentioned on today's panel, who really represent the cross-section of folks, including our students and families, our district, and our community partners who can actually make a difference in what's happening in our public school system. Our panelists will be discussing what Seattle students are experiencing these days and what it means for our community to step up and support them in catalytic ways, particularly in ways we might not consider when we think about education. So I'm going to pursue that for just a moment. What do you think about first when you think about school? As a former teacher and a mom whose kids are hopefully in class in Seattle Public Schools right now, that's where they should be, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about school is the classroom. I think for most of us, education is about what's being taught, about the content of the curriculum, and about what students will know and be able to do when their classes are done. That is, of course, the end goal of education. Students come to school to learn. But what we also know is that all of our students come to school as individuals with complex lives that impact how they experience that learning. It's not enough to simply say we're going to get the right curriculum and the right teacher and all will be well. We also have to consider who our students are and what conditions they need to thrive. At the Alliance, we know for sure that, as Dr. Jones agreed, that all Seattle Public School students have unlimited potential. There's nothing wrong with our kids. We also know that many of our students experience challenges outside of their control that impact their ability to learn. When students come to school hungry or uncertain of housing, without adequate clothing or supplies, or experiencing medical challenges, it's almost certain that they will not walk into that classroom in the morning ready for learning. They'll likely be understandably distracted by those circumstances and not have the opportunity to fully engage in their education. Back in 2018, Amazon came to the Alliance with an idea about how we might address that problem. What if, a catalytic question, what if, Alice Shobe asked me, what if we created a fund so that when these circumstances arise for students, school staff have the necessary resources to remove those obstacles? What if? That what if question was the inception of the Alliance's Right Now Needs Fund. Today, if a student shows up at a Seattle school on a snowy day without a coat, school staff can use the Right Now Needs Fund to buy them a coat. If a student can't read the whiteboard or can't do their homework because they lost their glasses, and if any of you have kids with glasses, you know they lose their glasses, the fund can be used to replace those glasses. If a student is experiencing homelessness, the fund can provide first and last month's rent, or a few nights in a hotel until more stable housing can be secured. The Right Now Needs Fund doesn't prevent the ongoing impacts of poverty, but it interrupts the obstacles that students across Seattle are facing every day. It gives families breathing room as they work to solve the challenges they encounter. It gives school staff resources to care for kids, and it helps make sure kids can better access the great educational experiences available to them in Seattle Public Schools. And the fund has also had some unanticipated impacts. We hear from our school partners all the time that just the existence of the Right Now Needs Fund gives school staff another reason to check in with families about how they are and what they might need. It creates space for dialogue that might not otherwise take place so that schools can better understand and support the families and the students they serve. The Right Now Needs Fund has had a transformative impact on the student experience in Seattle. I know a lot of folks in this room have had direct touch with supporting that work. And it truly would not be possible without partnership. The fund is a collaborative effort between the Alliance, Amazon, school and district staff, and Seattle students and families. We are endlessly grateful to Amazon for that original what if question and for seeking and supporting our partnership in this work. We're grateful to the other community partners who have joined Amazon in investing in the fund. We couldn't possibly make the fund happen without our teachers, school and district staff, and especially family support workers. They know our kids and families and bring their stories to light so the fund can be put to good use. And I have to shout out my team, the director of the Right Now Needs Fund, Zainab Abdelkader, and her new teammate, Grace Yim. Zainab and Grace work with every school across Seattle, all 106 schools. That's two people working with all 106 schools, if you can imagine, to make sure the fund reaches students and families every day. One of our core principles at the Alliance, and this again is aligned with what Dr. Jones had to say, is that we do our best work when we work together. Thank you to all of our partners who make the Right Now Needs Fund work so well. Today's panel is made up of folks who spend their days thinking about how to support our community. and our district, and particularly how to support our Seattle students. These are leaders who constantly ask those what-if questions and who actively seek creative and collaborative answers. And they're all key partners and co-conspirators in our work at the Alliance. As our teachers and schools work to make sure Seattle students have the best education possible, leaders like our panelists and leaders like all of you can help create the conditions necessary for our students to thrive. I'm going to hand it back to our fantastic MC, Terry Holloman, to officially introduce our esteemed guests. But before I do, thank you so much to Alicia Washington from the Seattle Foundation, Alice Shobe from Amazon, and Dr. Rocky Torres from Seattle Public Schools for all the good work you do, for partnering with the Alliance, for your commitment to our community and students, and for participating today. Please come up on stage. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.
Does that mean it's going to get hot up here?
All right. Again, I'd like to welcome our distinguished panel. We have a very, very special occasion here to have them here with us today. They come together at a cross-section to help everyone in the Seattle public school system and the things that we're doing here today. Allow me to introduce them all individually. First, Alice Shobe. Make some noise for Alice Shobe. Alice is a global social impact leader. Under her leadership, Amazon's community social impact programs have flourished into multi-million-dollar investments. Alice formed the company's community impact strategy focused on supporting young people, making sure that they have the resources that they need to thrive. Amazon now has keystone community investment programs, including Amazon's Housing Equity Fund, a $2 billion commitment to create equitable and inclusive housing in the company's headquarter regions, Amazon Future Engineer, Disaster Relief by Amazon, and the Right Now Needs Fund. These programs have collectively improved the lives of millions of young people and families around the globe. Again, Alice, thank you. Next up, right beside me, I have Alicia Washington. Alicia Washington is the president and CEO of Seattle Foundation, one of the largest community foundations in the country. In her role, she leads efforts to ignite transformational philanthropy to invest deeply in efforts to advance racial equity, shared prosperity, and belonging in the Seattle region. Prior to her role with Seattle Foundation, she served as the program director for Vibrant Neighborhoods and Inclusive Economy at the George Gunn Foundation. She led collaborative efforts of the program team to strengthen democracy building and civic engagement strategies statewide. And she directed grant-making strategies to bolster the community revitalization, economic growth, and leadership. Thank you very much for being here with us. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Rocky Torres. Dr. Rocky Torres began his work in yes, make some noise, yeah. You guys know him? Yeah. He began his work in education as a bilingual education teacher in the New York City Department of Education. He later worked as a school administrator in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Throughout his career, he has worked with diverse learners and coached educators. Dr. Torres provided numerous professional development and conference sessions, both regionally and nationwide, with a focus on curriculum, equity, mindset, inclusion, the universal design for learning and restorative practices. He is currently the Associate Superintendent of the Seattle School District. Thank you all for being here with us today. All right, guys, let's just jump right into it. Why, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're so passionate about this work. We'll start with you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Alliance for Education, all of you that are here today. Why am I here? Why am I passionate about this work? So I'm new to Seattle. I've been here 18 months. Actually, was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. So that's where I spent my upbringing, spent my career. And while I may not have been steeped in our school district, thank you, Superintendent, I am a product of Cleveland Public Schools from kindergarten all the way up into high school graduation. And so I know the impact of what education does for quality of life. I think about the intersections of philanthropy and the ways that we can be a strong partner to scale and innovate solutions. And so I'm here because they're all our kids, and we have to care about the kids that way. And while I'm new here, I want to be a part of that journey.
Thank you. Dr. Torres.
So for me, getting into public education was a lot of mission work. Part of what I often think about was, what was my experience as a child in school, given my identifiers, Latinx, I was a boy, LGBTQIA community, and how was I received in my schools? And so when I think about what we're doing in Seattle, the pushes that we're doing now, regardless of what some people think around the country about what we're doing, it's important work. It's the idea of how are we making our schools safe and welcome for all of our students at all times. And so when I get up in the morning, that's my driver a lot of times, is our kids in their neighborhood schools, safe and welcome and learning. And that's something that'll get me out of bed every day.
Right on.
Great.
Al.
Hi, everybody. I am a Detroit native. We have a little Midwest thing that we didn't realize that we had, but I've been in Seattle for 30 years, and most of my career I've worked in housing-related issues. And part of what I've loved about that is I can talk to anybody in the world about housing. We all get how important it is to anything else, including education. I have 2 sons I'm proud to share that went through SPS and through college, and they're employed. Can I have a round of applause?
That was definitely a good thing.
So that's a round of hope for you, but I think these issues of housing, food, education are really about individuals thriving, but really communities thriving, and it's just been a passion of mine for my whole career, and excited to be able to continue that work from Amazon House.
Right on. Thank you very much. Dr. Torres.
Yes.
Now, when we think about education, we tend to think about the instructors in front of the classroom and the opportunities that they offer our students to learn. But the Alliance team has shared with me that the students are experiencing beyond the classrooms can play as much of a role in their success in the classroom. Can you explain to us and tell us a little bit about the ways that students are needing and receiving support outside of the classroom?
Yeah, so when we think about the pandemic, we often just go to the negative about what was so wrong, the things that happened, the experiences we had, and that's valid, and I think we need to continue with that. One of the things that we often don't do, though, is think about what were some of the things that were a positive post-pandemic. And I think when we think about social emotional learning, wellness, and mental health, that literally took front center stage for all of us in the pandemic, schools being on the front lines of some of that work. And so one of the benefits of the pandemic is that it destigmatized what mental health means, what social emotional supports mean, and the understanding that our kids need that. If we think that they're going to thrive in academics and their calculus class, their 3rd grade reading class, we need to understand that they need to feel safe and taken care of as well. So when we think about what is it that our students need, it's not just the academics. And as Dr. Jones stated earlier, we are in a place right now where Seattle is experiencing some budget crunch. And so the question for us as a larger community becomes, are we going to stand behind the social emotional support as well? Because the school district is going to be funded to do all those academic pieces, and we will do that. But what about our school nurses? What about our social workers? What about our counselors? And so organizations like the Alliance are very pivotal in that work, because what we know is that those issues still exist, and we need to support those. So thinking about, as a larger community, how do we get behind that work so that we're supporting that as well, and not just focused on strictly the academics. One of the things we've also heard from some of our corporate partners is when our kids graduate, it's not just the academics that they're interested in. Our kids need to be emotionally apt at interacting with each other, your interpersonal skills. So this is even deeper when we think about long-term success for our students.
Yeah, we talk about COVID-19 and the effect that it's had, not just nationwide, but particularly here in Seattle. What are some of the things that are you seeing specifically, the concerns from students and as well as administrators, and what has been successful in turning that corner?
One of the things that we hear, I'll go back to when we were in the throes of the pandemic. There was a time where there was a group of us from the district. We were going out into community to say, what's going on? Talk to us. With a particular focus on our students and families of color, but we were out and we did these listening tour sessions. We did them in 7 different languages across the city, and we wanted to hear from families and kids, what's going on? Like, what are your needs? What's happening? What we were hearing, particularly from our students, was that need to feel safe and welcome in their schools, in their spaces. So what that told us was, are we doing a good job? Yes. Could we be doing more? Yes. So how are we approaching those conversations, and what are we doing? So when we think about the increase that we've done in staffing, whether it's instructional assistants or counselors or family social workers, those are all responses to what we were hearing from our students and our families around how do we feel safe and welcome. To your original question, if we were to rely solely on the backs of our teachers, do we really think that our kids are going to get to those educational outcomes we're talking about? Or do we, as a larger Seattle area, have the obligation to also put those social emotional supports behind kids so that they're going to be successful moving forward?
You feel like we've turned the corner on that, or are we still in the throes of it?
I think we're still a little bit in the throes of it. We still have work to do, for sure.
Okay. Alice, our audience has heard a little bit about what the Right Now Needs Fund is in the introduction earlier. Can you share why Amazon was motivated to help launch that, the Right Now Needs Fund?
Yeah, well, let me start with our SVP, David Sapolsky, has been on the Alliance board for over 10 years, I believe. And so he's been a real champion for the education corporate connection. And shortly after I was hired, we were talking about some data. And you may have heard that Amazon likes data, data-driven company. And the two pieces of data that we really anchored on were that students that were living in poverty, that had higher needs, were not educating or didn't have the educational outcomes of students that were not living in poverty. But the other one that really attached and caught our attention was the amount of money that teachers and school-based staff were spending a year on right now needs of students. They were pitching in and buying those coats. They were buying the missing school supplies. And so David introduced me to Lisa, and we did have that why conversation. And really, it was a moment of just saying, we want to figure out something that we could do that would really benefit all students across the city. So we put our heads together quite quickly, I might add. We were feeling the urgency around it, and we said, what could we design? And part of what I appreciated about the energy of the Alliance, as well as Amazon, is something we agreed on is we needed to make it as simple as possible. And so we came up with just 3 principles. One, well, we said the money needed to be flexible. Lisa and I had been both working in the social sector for a long time. We knew that you can move and really make more magic when you have flexibility. So we really landed on 3 principles for the fund. One was that it couldn't supplant money that was already in a district budget somewhere. So it wasn't going to come in and replace something. It had to be something new. That an adult closest to the child in the school setting had to make the decision. So we wanted teachers to say this child needs glasses, or the school counselor to say it. And the third was it had to purchase something that we believed would continue a student on their educational pathway undisrupted. So basically like immediate benefit. To not try to get into the we're gonna solve the greater poverty issue, but we're just gonna keep learning today happening. So the other element that we talked about that sometimes we felt like it could be overlooked, that there are students in need in every single school in the district. And so we also worked with the school district and asked the school district, how would you think about that problem? What data do you think? Oftentimes we just revert to Title I, like what are the Title I schools? And so the school district did some quite complex analysis of the schools, and I don't remember all the details now, but it wasn't just Title I. It was, we have a sense of the need in these schools by some factors. And then we divvied up the budget between those schools and just pushed the green light and said, go. So I think for a long time we were in there, testing and experimenting. That's how Amazon thinks about things. Big, ambitious goal, hard problem, go, start. And so really our cultures of the Alliance and Amazon came together in a quite beautiful way, I would say. That really jumped in. And so I want to applaud the Alliance for just the creativity, the starting in an open field and figuring it out. And we've had some great connections. Two that I would say is then the pandemic came, and because of some of the work that we had done, we were able to again work with the Alliance, work with the district. Amazon found and delivered 9,000 laptops to students that didn't have them. Awesome. We also, cool. I would say, part of the fun thinking about watching the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofits come together in that example. The school district was thinking differently about laptops at the beginning of that problem. The school district was like, we think about the longevity of a laptop, how many children can use it, and we were like, what's available is Chromebooks. We think they're cheap. Let's just find them and give them to the kids. And the school district was like, hey, different way to think about it? Yeah. Can you get 9,000 of them? Can you deliver them? And so some of that just innovation we just really appreciate, and I may be able to talk later about some of the ways that we've also built on the learnings from this fabulous partnership. So hats off to the Alliance and to all the supporters that worked with us to just push the green light, make it happen.
Now, when we talk about the Right Now Needs Fund, now maybe you, Alice, or Dr. Torres, maybe someone else can address this. Is there any red tape that's associated? Is there a threshold that a student has to meet in order to qualify or receive the Right Now Need Fund?
Again, I think that was the beauty of the flexible funding, and I'll say, we have aspirations to study this more deeply, to document, to put some clearer findings behind it, because why couldn't every school district have this opportunity? And I think the piece that we anchored on, and I keep looking at Lisa and the team to see if they disagree, but I think the piece is just really the high judgment of that adult that is right next to the child is what we anchored around. And sometimes that can be difficult to quantify. But when you do it and you see it in action, you know it's the right thing. You know that person that really cares about the child, cares about their outcome, is making decisions, and how can we unlock that? And we felt that a corporation with private dollars would be able to unlock what the teachers were doing with their private money, their own personal money before that.
I could share a quick example of how this played out in real time. I believe the Lafayette team's here. Principal Cindy Sheppy somewhere here. Hey, there you are. So back, I want to say it was around 2020. We had a family that was at Lafayette Elementary, and we used this, and I want to say it took less than a week to get some housing assistance up and going. Family did not get evicted from their home, and so that's just a real-world example of how this has some true impacts for our kids and our families.
Yeah. Alice, you talked about how this model should be used in other places, not just here, but around the country and around the world, really. Why should other people consider investing in something like this or consider replicating the approach that you guys have taken?
Well, I would say it seems to be working, and
Exactly.
as I said, we want to get better at proving that in ways that others will agree. But I will say that, again, in the Amazon spirit, we've already replicated versions of this in Bellevue Public Schools, and then also in our second headquarters in Arlington. So we're also working with those districts to make sure we're doing district-specific strategies. There's some tweaks that are more appropriate depending on the community. But I would just say it's respectful, it's getting results, it's keeping students in school, and it has a little bit of that no duh factor. Of course that would work. No duh. If you really help a teacher or a school administrator just jump in when they know, sometimes it's just something so simple. I use the glasses example a lot when I talk about it. But and then some of the harder ones like the housing, where we have a lot of other programs that serve those needs, and often that's the first line of defense, but sometimes they just don't move quickly enough, and a kid is losing valuable education, time and opportunity when their butt isn't in the school, every day.
Yeah. Move on to Alicia. Alicia, now you have a bird's eye view into what's happening across the Seattle community, including in the world of education. When it comes to educational investments, what is the Seattle Foundation's focus?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as a whole, we hold a vision for this region that is about shared prosperity. I have brought to that also a focus on joy, because everything that happens in our community isn't bad. We have to be able to celebrate the things that uplift us as well. And so when we think about that in the context of education, we really focus on 3 layers, kind of what's happening at the leadership level, like within the district or within schools. Are people empowered and have what they need to really drive strategic change, even in the midst of all of the challenges that exist? We think about it within the classroom setting. Do teachers have support? Do they have curriculum support, right? Are students learning in enriched environments? And then we think about it, last but certainly not least, at the family level. Do families truly have voice and agency in thinking about what is going to help their child succeed, and that the systems that impact that are listening and responding to what they need? And so when we move resources as a community foundation, we do that with that lens. But community foundations are strange beasts, right? We're not like an Amazon or a private philanthropy that has millions upon millions of dollars to kind of move at discretion. Yes, you see big numbers from us, but it's kind of split into two pots. There's a very limited core grant making pool that my team builds strategy around, and they use that to invest in community. And then that other big number that's a part of the equation are our donors that held funds with us to invest resources in things that they're passionate about. So our work to move resources in community and think about the ways in which we can support education really looks at the upstream focus, what's happening at the systems and policy level, that I could take this limited discretionary pool and have big impact around it to create leverage with folks like Amazon or Microsoft and others that care about education to help a few dollars go really, really far. And then how do we really work with our donors that care about this community, that fund things in education, but may not know as much about what's happening within our district, to educate them and then encourage them to invest in the nonprofits like Alliance for Education that's doing really important work to have change.
And you talked about the work that you do and the resources that you have to do that work. What are the most important areas that you think of right now, off the top of your head, that you are trying to address with the Seattle Foundation?
Yeah, so we think about our work within our Blueprint for Impact, which is kind of the strategic frame that we hold to think about shared prosperity, belonging, and justice for this region. And so again, when we think about that within the educational lens, of the three areas I named, what's happening at the leadership level, what's happening within the classroom level, what's happening with families, family and family voice is a big part of that for us. A lot of the work that we invest in, whether it's in climate justice or building our democracy or even thinking about an equitable economy, the through line on all of that is ensuring that communities feel like they can mobilize, organize, and have impact on systems and policies in a way that create long-lasting change. Because despite how wealthy this community is, philanthropy dwarfs in comparison to what government can do at a systems level to drive change, right? And so we really have to think about the ways that we can leverage resources to have broad scale impact and the ways that we can invest in people to feel empowered in their neighborhoods, with their neighborhood schools, within community, to have the resources and autonomy to push for the changes that they want to see.
Right on. You talked about the broad scale impact that you guys can have. What do you feel has been the most impactful in your work when it comes to the students here in the Seattle area?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've heard some examples where Seattle Foundation's kind of been a partner behind the scenes in some of that, but it really is the way that we can work across sectors. So with the business community, with the district, government, public sector, and others to invest in things that can have long-lasting impact. And so there was a shout out earlier for the Office of African American Male Achievement. We were one of the early investors into that, to like seed an idea that eventually the district take to scale, but important learnings, important impacts that not only help Black boys, but also will be able to like bring lessons to other communities of students across the district to improve learning and lessen the marginalization and the gap and the equities that we see in learning and how people move ahead, right? I think another piece is in the height of COVID, right? Everybody was moving into action. Seattle Foundation's role in that is that we were one of the first foundations across the country to launch a COVID response fund in partnership, again, with a lot of folks that are in this room here today, even on this stage, to move hundreds of millions of dollars quickly at the local level. We also launched All in Washington, which was the statewide effort with the governor's office to do the same thing. And it was through those vehicles that a lot of the work to close the digital equity gap, make sure students had laptops and hotspots and whatever was needed at the height of that in order to continue learning, we were right there. And so we want to continue to be able to work on those sorts of innovative, real-time, real needed things that can scale over time, but we can use our resources to move in initially and again, continue the work with the people that we work with that hold wealth, that care about this community, to be thoughtful about the ways that they can also invest and be a part of this as well.
Right. Seattle is a very caring and generous community where they give back very well when it comes to philanthropy. What does the Seattle Foundation do when it comes to educating philanthropists on how to generate funds or help out with the Seattle Foundation?
Yeah, it's all relationship based. I have an incredible team of philanthropic advisors that spend every day on the phone in meetings, in community with folks that hold funds with us to help them understand the landscape. We are their trusted advisor that as they think about I care about education, or I care about climate, or I care about affordable housing. Who's doing this work and how I can support them? We try to bridge that gap for them to know how they can really engage. That's always been kind of the work of a community foundation. But I sit in this role and think about where we want to go further. A big thing for me is that we got to break down the silos that exist between people with wealth and people that are driving work in community, right? We got to... Thank you. We really got to move beyond this kind of those that have it and get smart and then give it to those that like necessarily don't, at least in the monetarily sense, but are doing amazing things, and get more accustomed to creating the kind of shared space where we're learning and we're acting together, where we're coming together as different parts of community. Because what I sense from my conversations with folks with wealth and what I sense from organizations doing the work and with neighbors and activists and organizers that I'm meeting as a new resident here is that people care about this community and they want to see it succeed. They will critique it, right? But that's our right to critique it because we care about it, right? And we want to see it be its best. But we have to also recognize and hold in our body that like, in order to thrive, we have to all thrive. If one of us is hurting, all of us are hurting, right? And so until we can get to a place to recognize this as collective work, that we're moving together, we won't be where we want to be. And so my goal is how do we break down those divides so we see us as the collective and not us versus them in order to move together.
All right. I like that. All right. I want to open this question up to all of you. Now, we're going to start with you, Alice. So if I were to give you a magic wand, you can wave this magic wand. What is one thing that you would want every student in Seattle to experience from kindergarten through 12? What is the one major number one thing you would want them all to have an experience with?
Surprise question. Just want to say that.
Yeah. Magic wand.
Love it. Woohoo! So I'm just going to say, just as I shared with you, my personal DNA is I want them to be living in safe, affordable housing, just as a premise, as really a foundation to their education. So that would be my big magic wand.
Okay.
I would say, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it would be joy in their education. And when I say that, when I say joy, I don't mean as defined by adults, I mean as defined by them.
Right.
So are kids joyful according to them?
On
How
their
are
terms.
they feel? Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
For me, I think I would want their value and their brilliance to be consistently affirmed every day.
Powerful. Yes. What is one thing outside of curriculum and the actual education that you got, is one thing that you think helped you as a learner when you were in school? Another trick question.
I'm faster this time. All right. Role models, I would say, is I'm a first-gen student in my family, and seeing other people in close proximity to me, so especially women that were taking on education, could give me a sense of what the possibilities were, was super important. And I want every young child to have people that they identify with and can see themselves in, and then they say, yeah, I can go do that. I can take on that cool, future, career of the future that none of us have even imagined yet, that some of these mentors will help young people figure out.
Awesome, thank you.
So I think about, I would have been termed back when I was a kid what we would call a squirrely kiddo now, probably in our schools. And so I think about, none of this is absent without our teachers. And so if I did not have some strong teachers back in my foundational years, I don't know. So I think that's one of the things we have to remember, is that our educators make a difference. And this doesn't exist without them and their input in how we do this.
Very nice.
Yep. Sports was a big thing for me. I ran cross country. I was supposed to be conditioning for track, never went to track, just stayed with cross country. But it was the thing that provided some balance and a different stretching of how I was growing and maturing as a young adult, by learning how to have the endurance to go long distances, how to process and understand pain in new ways, because my body was not at first conditioned to understand what it meant to run 3 miles and not stop. But then also what it taught me about patience, right? And having good coaches and folks around me that helped me understand how to make space for that and have discipline for that at the same level that I had for my education. So sports played a big part.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, give it up. Yeah. So as we close out here, do you guys have any final remarks that you want to leave with this audience to let them know the importance of supporting our young students here in this school district beyond the classroom?
I don't get to go first this time.
I'll go first. Okay. So I think a lot of the conversation we had earlier around social emotional learning, that's real. I think there's still a sector of our country and community that maybe doesn't fully buy into that. I like to think in Seattle, we think differently, and there's no wrong or right necessarily, but I do like the way that we think about it. And so when we think about educating our youth, I go back to, it's bigger than the pandemic impacts. I think the pandemic highlighted it and allowed it to be demystified. But at the end of the day, if you were to think about college and career readiness, what we're going to hear is that our kids need to be social emotionally ready for this, not just academically ready. So the more we can support that work, that is not just what the teacher's doing in the classroom, the better off our children are going to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
We'll drop our aga. You know, that question reminds me of a conversation very similar to this that I attended in Cleveland some years back. And the speaker asked the audience, do you love your children as much as you love the Cleveland Browns? And, you know, right? You know, because in Cleveland, in any sports town, right?
Your sports team is tough to love the Cleveland Browns.
Right? I mean, but you know,
let's be honest.
it's why they're the heartbreak kids, right? We're committed no matter what. But the comment stuck with me because I think it is so easy in the midst of unions and deals and politics and bureaucracy and all the things that swirl around the education of children that we forget about the kids sometimes. It becomes about all these other political things and agendas that ultimately impact what happens to kids. I mean, listen to you talk about kind of a social emotional well-being and support and the fact that we have to prove and demonstrate that there's a need to invest and support that. Makes me question and hold that statement close about, do we love our kids as much as we love the sports team, as much as we love the thing that brings together community and we rally around and we show up to in big numbers? Can we commit to loving our kids the same way? And so that's what I hold.
You know, I was thinking that to use Amazonian, that's what we call ourselves when we work at Amazon, like an Amazon common mental model about how we think about the world is we push ourselves to think really big and dream big and see the possibility and to work backwards from the customer of the student, but then to really start small and just get going and then look at what happened and then keep making course corrections with that relentless focus on both the big vision and the aspiration and the young people that you're trying to help. And so I would say, you know, that's been, I think that's one of the importances of the Alliance and organizations like the Alliance is just to bring that innovation, to bring that opportunity, to find the partners that will dream big, start small, and go as well. So I think will be my final one. Thanks for giving me some time, you guys.
Well, I want to say, I want to say on behalf of everyone here in the room, thank you guys for joining us here today. We got a lot of valuable information about the work that they're doing in the community, did we not? Yes, and especially in our school system. So again, Alicia, Alice, Dr. Torres, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.